Every morning, Emily Carter slipped on her long sleeve uniform, hiding the scars that told a story nobody in Joe's diner cared to hear. The regulars saw her as the quiet waitress with burned hands, a target for whispers and cruel jokes. They called her damaged, a shadow of something broken. But today, something shifted. A careless shove from a loudmouth customer tore away her carefully built facade, revealing a truth that stopped a stranger's heart cold. Stick around, because what happens next changes everything. Emily moved through Joe's diner with a grace that didn't match the weight she carried. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, her eyes scanning the room like she was still on patrol. The summer heat pressed against the diner's windows, making the air thick, but she kept her sleeves down, even as sweat beaded on her forehead. Customers fanned themselves with menace, complaining about the sticky booths, yet Emily stayed covered, her left hand tucked behind a notepad. For 3 years, she'd poured coffee, wiped tables, and swallowed the stares. Monster, they whispered, freak. She let the words slide off her, or so she told herself. But words, like scars, have a way of sinking deep. The breakfast rush was in full swing, the clatter of plates and hum of conversation filling the small space. Emily navigated the tables with precision, refilling mugs, dodging elbows, her movements sharp and controlled. She'd learned to keep her distance, to angle her body so nobody got too close. Most days it worked. Most days she was invisible, but not today. Ryan Mitchell and his construction crew swaggered in, their boots heavy on the linoleum, their laughter louder than the jukebox. Ryan, broad-shouldered and smug, scanned the room like a king surveying his court. His eyes landed on Emily, and his lips curled into a smirk that promised trouble. "Well, look at this," Ryan said, his voice cutting through the diner. "Our favorite mystery lady, wrapped up like it's Christmas. What's under those sleeves, sweetheart? Something scary." His crew chuckled, leaning back in their booth, ready for the show. Emily approached, her face a mask of calm, her pen poised over her notepad. "Good morning, gentlemen. What can I get you?" Her voice was steady, but her shoulders tensed, betraying the effort it took to stay composed. Ryan leaned forward, his grin widening. "Come on, don't play shy. You hiding burns from a kitchen fire, or maybe something worse. Meth lab gone wrong." The laughter grew, sharp and mean, slicing through the morning calm. Other customers glanced over, then looked away, their coffee suddenly fascinating. Nobody wanted to get involved, not with Ryan's type. He was the kind of man who thrived on making others small, who mistook cruelty for strength. Emily stood her ground, her left hand gripping the notepad tighter, her right hand steady as she wrote. "Just coffee for now?" she asked, her tone flat, giving him nothing. Ryan's eyes narrowed, annoyed by her lack of reaction. He wanted a fight, a flinch, something to feed his ego. "You're no fun," he said, tossing a sugar packet at her feet. "Pick that up. Let's see those hands you're so proud of." Emily bent down, slow and deliberate, retrieving the packet. The diner watched, holding its breath, sensing the tension coiling tighter. As she rose, Ryan's hand shot out, shoving her shoulder hard. She stumbled, her tray clattering to the floor, coffee splashing across the linoleum. Her sleeve rode up, just enough to reveal not just scars, but something else, a tattoo crisp and unmistakable. 3rd Infantry Division, Iraq 2006, wrapped around crossed rifles. The sight hit the room like a shockwave, but nobody felt it more than the man in the corner booth. James Parker had been nursing his coffee for 2 hours, his eyes never leaving Emily. His weathered hands clutched a faded photograph, one he'd carried for 18 years. The moment he saw that tattoo, his breath caught, his heart pounding like it hadn't since that night in the desert. "It's her," he whispered, the words barely audible over the diner's hum. "It has to be her." He'd spent nearly 2 decades searching, VA hospitals, veteran forums, every lead a dead end. Now, here she was, serving coffee to people who didn't deserve her. The tattoo wasn't just ink. It was a key to a memory that had haunted him, a debt he could never repay. Ryan, oblivious to the shift in the air, laughed louder. "What's this? Playing soldier now? That fake tattoo doesn't fool anyone." Emily froze, her sleeve still up, the scars and ink exposed under the fluorescent lights. Her face paled, but her eyes burned with something deeper than pain. Resignation, maybe, or the weight of a past she'd tried to bury. James stood, his chair scraping the floor, his hands trembling as he reached for the photograph in his pocket. The diner fell silent, every eye on the scarred waitress, and the stranger, who looked like he'd seen a ghost. Something was about to break, and nobody could look away. James Parker's boots hit the linoleum, each step heavy with 18 years of searching. His eyes locked on Emily's tattoo, the 3rd Infantry insignia, a beacon pulling him back to a night he'd never escaped. The diner's noise faded, replaced by the roar of memory. Explosions, screams, the smell of burning fuel. He clutched the photograph tighter, its edges worn from years of handling. Emily stood frozen, her sleeve still up, unaware that the man approaching her carried her face in his dreams, her voice in his nightmares. She'd saved him, and he'd spent half his life trying to find her. That night in Iraq, July 2006, had been a furnace. James was 25, a cocky sergeant in the 3rd Infantry, riding in a Humvee through Ramadi's dust-choked streets. The convoy was routine, or so they thought. Rodriguez was driving, humming a tune from home, while Thompson dozed in the back. Then the world split open. The ID flipped their vehicle, metal twisting, fire clawing at the interior. Rodriguez was gone in an instant, his laughter silenced. Thompson groaned, blood seeping from his head. James pulled at the door, but it wouldn't budge. The flames grew closer, licking his boots, the heat searing his lungs. He was going to die. Then she appeared. Emily Carter, their medic, barely 23, her face smudged with ash but fierce with purpose. She shouldn't have been there. Medics were supposed to stay back, safe with the wounded. But Emily never followed that rule. She ran toward the burning Humvee, her combat knife slashing at the window's frame. James remembered her hands, steady despite the chaos, pulling him through a space too small for survival. "Get out," she yelled, her voice cutting through the panic. "Move, soldier!" He stumbled free, collapsing in the sand, but she didn't stop. She went back for Thompson, even as the fire roared louder, ammunition popping like deadly firecrackers. James watched, helpless, as the second IED detonated. The blast threw Emily over him, her body shielding his from shrapnel and heat. He saw her arms, already blistering, her uniform shredded. She didn't scream, didn't falter, just held him down until the quick reaction force arrived. When they pulled her off, she was unconscious, her back a map of burns and metal. James was airlifted to Germany, then Walter Reed, his body patched together through months of surgeries. But Emily was gone, discharged, they said, vanished into civilian life. All he had was that photograph, a snapshot of their unit before that night, her smile bright with the confidence of youth. Now, in Joe's diner, that same woman stood before him, her scars a testament to what she'd done. James stopped a few feet away, his voice barely a whisper. 3rd Infantry. Ramadi 2006. Emily's eyes widened, her body tensing like she might bolt. She scanned the exits, a soldier's instinct. But something in his face held her still. Recognition flickered, faint but real. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice cracking. You're not supposed to be here. They told me you didn't make it." James shook his head, his throat tight. "They lied. Or they didn't know. I made it because of you." He pulled out the photograph, his hands shaking as he held it up. Her breath caught, her fingers hovering over the faces. Rodriguez Thompson, herself, also young. "I've carried this for 18 years, he said. "Searched every hospital, every forum. I thought you were a ghost." Emily's tray crashed to the floor, cups shattering, coffee pooling like blood. "No," she said, stepping back, her hand gripping the counter. "I failed you. I failed them all. Rodriguez, Thompson, they didn't make it. I wasn't fast enough." Tears streaked her face, each one carrying years of guilt. James took a step closer, his voice soft but firm. "You ran into hell for us. You're the reason I'm here, the reason my daughters have a father." Emily shook her head, denying the words she couldn't accept. The diner watched, the air thick with their shared pain, the weight of a debt neither could fully measure. Ryan Mitchell's laughter broke the silence, harsh and oblivious. "What's this sob story? Fake tears for a fake soldier." He stood, pointing at Emily's tattoo. "Stolen valor, that's what this is." "Pathetic." James turned, his eyes blazing, but he didn't move yet. Emily's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from her. She'd faced worse than Ryan, war, loss, the mirror every morning. But his words cut deeper than she'd admit. The patrons shifted, some angry, some ashamed of their silence. An older man, his hands trembling, half stood, his wife whispering, "Don't, Henry, it's not our fight." But it was. James knew it, and so did Emily, even if she couldn't say it. The truth was out, and it was about to change everything. Ryan Mitchell's voice echoed through Joe's diner, each word a jab meant to wound. Emily stood exposed, her scars and tattoo bared, her composure crumbling under the weight of his cruelty. But James Parker had heard enough. He stepped forward, his presence commanding the room, his anger a quiet, storm-building strength. Ryan, oblivious, kept talking, mocking Emily's service, calling her a fraud. James's voice cut through like a blade. "Shut your mouth," he said. "You don't know who you're talking to." The diner fell silent, every eye on James as he faced Ryan. His hands clenched, scars visible on his knuckles, a map of his own survival. "Let me tell you about Emily Carter," he said, his voice low but carrying the weight of truth. July 15, 2006. Ramadi, Iraq. A convoy hit by an IED, our Humvee flipped, burning. I was trapped, fire eating my skin, my friends dying around me. Rodriguez was gone, Thompson bleeding out. I thought that was it. My last moments, screaming in the dark. Then she came. Emily, our medic, ran into that fire when everyone else ran away. She pulled me out, bare hands against burning metal, her skin blistering as she worked. James paused, letting the image sink in. The patrons leaned forward, some covering their mouths, others gripping their tables. Emily stared at the floor, tears falling, her body rigid with the pain of memory. "She didn't just save me," James continued. "She went back for Thompson, even as the flames grew, even as bullets started cooking off. And when the second IED hit, designed to kill rescuers like her, she threw herself over me. Took the shrapnel, the burns, everything meant for me. That's who you're calling a monster. That's who you're throwing sugar packets at." Ryan's smirk faded, his crew shifting uncomfortably, their laughter long gone. James's voice rose, each word a hammer. 17. That's how many soldiers are alive today because of her. 17 families didn't get a flag and a letter. Bronze Star for valor. Purple Heart for wounds. Combat medical badge with a star. She didn't ask for glory, didn't parade her medals. She came here, to this diner, serving coffee to people like you who spit on her sacrifice. He pointed at Ryan, his finger steady. "You, with your gym muscles and your loud mouth, you dare question her." The room erupted, not in cheers, but in a swell of emotion, anger, shame, awe. Phones were out recording, the story spreading beyond the diner's walls. A college kid near the counter whispered, "It's going viral. 50,000 views already." Ryan's face paled, his phone buzzing with notifications he didn't dare check. Emily lifted her head, her eyes meeting James's, a silent plea to stop. She didn't want this, didn't want her pain on display, but it was too late. The truth was a wildfire, and it was burning through Joe's diner. Henry, the older man, stood fully now, his cane shaking in his hand. "I was in Vietnam," he said, his voice rough. "I know a soldier when I see one. You're a disgrace." His wife didn't stop him this time, her eyes wet with pride. Other patrons nodded, their silence turning to resolve. The cook, a burly man named Tom, stepped from the kitchen, his spatula gripped like a weapon. Ryan's crew edged away, sensing the tide turning, leaving their leader alone. James pulled out the photograph, holding it up for all to see. "This is her," he said. "Before that night, before the scars. This is the woman who saved me." Emily's breath hitched, her hand covering her mouth as she recognized the faces. Rodriguez, Thompson herself, smiling in a desert long ago. "I thought I failed you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They said you died in Germany." James shook his head, stepping closer. "You gave me my life. My girls, my family. They exist because of you." Ryan tried to laugh, but it came out weak, desperate. "This is all an act," he said, pointing at Emily. "She's no hero. Probably got those scars from a bar fight." The crowd gasped, their anger boiling over. A woman near the door shouted, "Shut up, you coward." Phones kept filming, the numbers climbing. Hundreds of thousands now, comments flooding in. Veterans groups tagging Ryan's employer. His phone rang, his boss's name flashing. He didn't answer, but the sound was a death knell. Emily wiped her tears, her voice soft but clear. I just wanted to be left alone. But you couldn't even give me that. James turned back to Ryan, his eyes cold. You're about to learn what happens when you mock someone who's faced hell. The diner held its breath, waiting for the reckoning that was coming, not just for Ryan, but for everyone who'd looked away too long. Ryan Mitchell stood alone, his phone a siren of his unraveling life. The diner's air was thick with judgment, every patron a witness to his fall. James's words had stripped him bare, exposing not just Emily's heroism, but Ryan's pettiness. His phone buzzed again, his boss, his supervisor, unknown numbers, all screaming consequences he couldn't escape. Emily, still reeling from her exposed past, felt the weight of every eye on her scars. She wanted to run, to hide, but something deeper kept her rooted. A strength she'd forgotten she had. Ryan's bravado crumbled as he fumbled with his phone, the screen lighting up with notifications. His boss's voice blasted through the speaker when he finally answered. Mitchell, you're done. Fired. Don't come near the site. The line went dead, and Ryan's face drained of color, his hands shaking as he stared at the crowd. They didn't move, their faces a wall of disgust. You brought this on yourself, a woman near the counter said, her voice sharp. The college kid filming nodded, his stream now at 200,000 views. Branson Construction's tagged, he said. Their whole team seeing this. Emily's heart pounded, her scars burning under the fluorescent lights. She'd spent 3 years building a life where nobody asked questions, where she could be invisible. Now, her past was a spectacle, her pain a viral video. She looked at James, his eyes still fierce with gratitude, and felt a mix of gratitude and betrayal. You didn't have to do this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't want to be a hero. James's face softened, but he didn't back down. They needed to know who you are, he said. You deserve that. The diner's manager, Frank Sullivan, burst through the kitchen doors, his Marine Corps tattoo visible on his arm. What the hell's going on? He demanded, his voice a command. The college kid thrust his phone forward, showing the video. Ryan's cruelty, James's speech, Emily's scars. Frank's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing as he watched. He turned to Ryan, his voice low and dangerous. Get out. Now, if I see you here again, I'll call the cops. Ryan tried to speak, but Frank cut him off. Move. The crowd parted just enough for Ryan to stumble toward the door, his phone still ringing, notifications piling up like debris from a wreck. He paused, looking back, searching for a defense. But the collective glare silenced him. He fled, the bell above the door chiming like a final judgment. Inside, the diner exhaled, the tension shifting to something softer, heavier. Emily sank onto a stool, her hands trembling as she pulled her sleeve down, a reflex she couldn't shake. James knelt beside her, his voice gentle. I'm sorry if this hurt you. But I couldn't let him lie about you. Emily's eyes met his, wet with tears she hadn't let fall in years. I thought I could leave it behind, she said. The war, the guilt. I thought if I stayed quiet it wouldn't find me. Her fingers traced the tattoo, the scars, each a memory of fire and loss. Rodriguez's laugh, Thompson's quiet prayers. She'd carried them all, blaming herself for not saving them. James touched her arm, careful not to startle her. You saved who you could, he said. That's more than most would dare. The patrons watched, some crying, others whispering about the video now spreading across platforms. Veterans groups were sharing it, local news outlets picking it up. Emily's story wasn't hers anymore, it belonged to the world. Henry, the Vietnam vet, approached, his cane steady now. You're one of us, he said, his voice thick. Don't you ever hide those scars again. His wife nodded, squeezing Emily's hand, her touch warm and grounding. Frank cleared his throat, addressing the room. This diner's always been a place for second chances, he said. But what happened today? Emily, I didn't know. That's on me. He looked at her, his eyes apologetic. You're not just staff. You're family. Starting now, you're shift manager. 30% raise. And you don't cover those scars. They're proof of who you are. The crowd applauded, the sound rolling through the diner like thunder, not for show, but for respect. Emily nodded, her throat too tight to speak. She didn't want the spotlight, but she felt something shift inside, crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. James stood beside her, his photograph now on the counter, a bridge between their past and this moment. The diner wasn't just a workplace anymore. It was a place where truths could heal, where scars could be honored. But Ryan's fall was a warning, and Emily knew the world outside wouldn't let her story fade quietly. 6 months had passed since Joe's Diner became a battleground for truth. Emily stood behind the counter, her short sleeve uniform revealing scars she no longer hid. The morning rush hummed around her, the air lighter now, the walls adorned with photos of local veterans, her own among them. She was shift manager, her stride confident, her smile genuine. But the weight of that day lingered, a quiet ache in her chest. She'd made peace with her past, or so she thought, until the bell chimed and a familiar figure stepped inside, changing everything. Ryan Mitchell hesitated in the doorway, his broad frame smaller somehow, his eyes downcast. Gone was the swagger, the designer clothes, replaced by a simple work shirt with a veteran's center badge. The diner stilled, regulars tensing, recognizing the man who'd once mocked their hero. Henry, at his usual table, gripped his cane, ready to stand. Emily's heart skipped, her hands pausing on the coffee pot. She hadn't expected to see him again, hadn't wanted to. But something in his posture, hunched, almost broken, made her wait, listen, before judging. I know I'm not welcome, Ryan said, his voice low, rough with nerves. I came to deliver this. He placed an envelope on the counter, his hands calloused, trembling slightly. $5,000. From the Veterans Center's fundraiser. It's not much, but it's a start. Emily studied him, noting the changes. His gym-built muscles had softened, his hands marked by honest work, painting walls, fixing wheelchairs, serving others. He looked like a man who'd lost everything and was clawing his way back. The crowd watched, some whispering, others glaring. Henry muttered, "He's got nerve," showing his face. Emily picked up the envelope, feeling the weight of signatures on the back. Veterans who'd trusted Ryan to deliver this. She saw their names, their faith in his change, and something stirred in her. I lost it all, Ryan said, his eyes meeting hers briefly. My job, my wife, my house. I'm back with my parents, starting over. But the worst was realizing who I'd become. That day, I didn't just hurt you. I disrespected everyone who served. Emily's mind flashed to Iraq, to the soldiers she couldn't save, the guilt she'd carried. She knew what it was to be broken, to seek redemption in small, painful steps. Ryan's face held that same hunger for forgiveness, but also fear she'd turn him away. The diner waited, the air heavy with their judgment. She opened the envelope, glancing at the check, then set it aside. Why are you here, Ryan? She asked, her voice steady but searching. To feel better. Or to make a difference. He swallowed, his hands fidgeting. Both, he admitted. The Veterans Center, they didn't trust me at first, made me prove myself. 6 months, every day, no excuses. Cleaning floors, carrying boxes, listening to stories from people I'd never have looked at before. They taught me what service means. What you did, it's bigger than I can ever understand. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm trying. Emily saw the truth in his eyes, the rawness of someone who'd faced his own ugliness and was fighting to be better. Henry stood, his voice sharp. You think a check fixes what you did. You humiliated her. Emily raised a hand, silencing him gently. She looked at Ryan, seeing not the bully, but a man carrying his own scars, invisible but real. I didn't want that day to define me, she said, and I won't let it define you. Everyone deserves a chance to rebuild. I learned that in the desert, saving people who didn't always deserve it. That's what makes us human. The crowd softened, some nodding, others still skeptical. Ryan's shoulders relaxed, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Thank you, he whispered, stepping back. I'll keep showing up. Emily nodded, her voice firm. Do that. The Veterans Center needs people who mean it. He turned to leave, the bell chiming softly, but the moment lingered, a question hanging in the air. Could someone like Ryan truly change? And was Emily's grace enough to heal them both? Emily Carter stood behind the counter, the envelope from Ryan still in her drawer, a quiet reminder of a choice she'd made. Joe's Diner buzzed with its usual morning rhythm, but it was different now. a place where stories were honored, where scars were badges of courage. Emily's short sleeves bared her arms. Her tattoo and burns no longer secrets. She'd found a fragile piece, but Ryan's return had stirred something deeper, a question she hadn't fully answered. Could she let go of the past? Not just for him, but for herself. The regulars noticed the change in her. She smiled more, her laughter soft but real. The framed photo of her in combat gear hung behind the register, next to others. Henry from Vietnam, Frank from the Marines, local kids who'd served and come home. The diner had become a sanctuary, a place where people shared their truths over coffee and eggs. But Emily's truth was heavier, woven with loss and sacrifice. She thought of Rodriguez, his grin fading in the flames, and Thompson, his prayers unanswered. Their faces haunted her, but James's gratitude had cracked open a door she'd kept locked. Ryan's words echoed in her mind. "I'm trying," he'd said, and she'd seen the weight he carried, the shame of who he'd been. She'd spent years running from her own shame, blaming herself for those she couldn't save. Forgiving Ryan wasn't about him. It was about freeing herself from the chains of guilt and anger. She'd learned in Iraq that saving someone didn't always mean bringing them home. Sometimes it meant giving them a chance to be better. That's what she'd done for Ryan, and maybe, in doing so, she'd saved a part of herself. One morning, a new customer, a young veteran with a prosthetic leg, thanked her for the photo wall. "It means something," he said, "to know we're not invisible." Emily nodded, her throat tight. "It's for all of us," she said, "to remember we're still here." She thought of James, now a regular, who brought his daughters last week. They'd hugged her, calling her Aunt Emily. Their laughter a balm to wounds she'd thought would never heal. James had whispered, "You gave me this," and she'd felt the truth of it, a life beyond the fire. Frank approached her during a lull, his eyes serious. "You did good with that kid," he said, meaning Ryan. Not many would have given him a chance. Emily shrugged, wiping the counter. "I didn't do it for him. I did it because I know what it's like to need one." Frank nodded, his Marine tattoo catching the light. "You're stronger than you know, Carter. Don't forget it." She smiled, a real one, feeling the weight of his words settle into her bones. The bell chimed, and a group of veterans from the center walked in, their badges matching Ryan's. They greeted her warmly, one mentioning Ryan's latest project, renovating a shelter for homeless vets. "He's still showing up," the man said. "Said you told him to." Emily's heart lifted, not with pride but with hope. She hadn't forgiven Ryan completely. Some wounds cut too deep, but she'd chosen compassion, and that choice had changed the diner, the community, her. By noon, the rush slowed, and Emily paused, looking out the window. The summer sun bathed the street in gold, and for the first time in years, she felt light, unburdened. She'd carried her scars as punishment, but now they were proof of survival, of love for those she'd saved and those she'd lost. Ryan's redemption wasn't hers to grant, but her grace had given him a path, and that was enough. Joe's Diner wasn't just a place to eat anymore. It was a testament to second chances, to the power of truth and the courage to keep going. Emily Carter's story isn't just about scars or heroism. It's about the quiet battles we fight long after the smoke clears. She could have hidden forever, let the world's cruelty define her. But she chose to stand tall, to let her wounds tell a story of sacrifice and strength. Ryan's return wasn't the end of her journey. It was a mirror, showing her how far she'd come. Forgiveness didn't erase the past, but it built a bridge to something better, not just for her, but for everyone who walked through Joe's Diner. The veterans' photos on the wall, the laughter of James's daughters, the nod from a stranger who understood. Those were her victories, small and profound. We all carry scars, seen or unseen, from choices made in moments of fire or fear. Emily reminds us that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to keep going. To offer grace when it's hard. To honor those we've lost by living fully. Joe's Diner became a place where truths were spoken, where second chances took root. Maybe that's what we're all searching for, a space to be seen, to be whole. So, take a moment today. Look at your own scars. What story do they tell? And who might you lift up by sharing it?